Good morning. This morning, I want to talk about how to stop judgment. And I guess the first question that I came up with is, why would I want to stop judgment? What's so bad about it? And one part of it is that it's sort of socially unacceptable or looked down upon. You know, you're being so judgmental. You're a bad person. And I started to look into that. Why does that happen? And where do we get that from? And it seems to be like just a natural occurrence in our brain, that the way that our brain helps us is to look at things and say, this is a safe thing and this is not a safe thing. And this is a thing that's good for me. This is not a good thing for me. And what keeps us safe and keeps us protected most times. But as it works, it kind of just keeps on going. It's like a program that's kind of become self-aware and is decided to take care of everything. And so every time it looks at something, like it looks at this table, this tree, this bush, these rocks, and it judges it and it puts it into a category of safe or not safe. And it decides that it's a hard thing or a soft thing or a prickly thing. And it has all these analysis of it. And if you take that even further, and that our brain starts to judge people, it starts to look into its database and see what is safe and not safe and what it knows about it, and starts to do the same kind of analysis. So that can really take us down this rabbit hole of just anxiousness. So somebody that's really doing a lot of judgment and is in their brain a lot, they're usually in a lot of anxiousness. And then, of course, that pairs up with depression. So why would we want to stop doing that? Well, one of the big reasons, if we can hold on to this one, is it really separates us from society. It separates us from other human beings that we might have a connection with. And it also, because it does that, it also separates us from our own self. And the reason why I say this is because there's an aspect of ourselves in every person on the planet. So I kind of see as the other 8 billion people on the planet they're me, but they're a stronger aspect of this one part of myself. So when I look at this person and I see that have some kind of judgment about them, I'm really judging back on myself, that little aspect of me. And I tend to love myself less and less and less every time I judge another person, because I'm really judging back at myself. So how do we stop judgment? And I know that the answer is really, you're never going to stop judgment, but you can really take the meat out of it, take the energy out of it, and stop feeding it. And the way that has worked for me a lot, not all the time, because every time it slips, I find myself judging someone or myself. But when I see another person and I look at them, and my brain comes up with something, they are so this, or they're not enough that. The first thing I need to do is to ask myself, before I go any further and really grab onto this and make this into a story, is there any possibility that I can be that way? Is there any possibility that when I'm unbalanced, when I've had a tough day or long day, I'm kind of stressed out, is there any way that I can show up that way? Or have I ever showed up that way in the past? And it may be that I'm not showing up exactly that person. I'm not that guy with the super muscly arms and tattoos all over his body and with a cigar hanging out of his mouth, sitting on his chopper. But there are aspects of him that I have lived, and there's a certain vibration of consciousness that I have been in with that person. So the moment I start judging that guy for being who he is in that moment, I'm judging myself for, that time when I was a little bit of that. And it's not that I was that biker guy. It's just that what he was thinking, what he was feeling about the world, how he felt about himself, how he was looking to protect himself to show up in this way. I have lived that. So that's just an example of how we can look at pretty much every person on the planet, and if you really want to open it up, to every angel and every asshole, to every person that's ever done harm to another person. And even saying that, like my sensitive empathic nature comes up and starts to bring tears to my eyes, that I can relate to someone that's done severe harm to somebody. And that hurts. But it hurts even more when I just stay in judgment and I don't go to any compassion or empathy, that I might have been that person. And that's what kind of, takes over. It starts to flood the emotions in me that, wow, I've been that. And I feel so much compassion for myself when I've been that person in this life or any other life. And that feels so healing to me, to look at that person as I start welling up with tears about what's gone on with them, what's caused them to be from a light to a person of darkness. What what might have happened in their life to make them be that way? And I can see how, I've had some of that in my life, this life, and I probably had a lot of it in another life. So I can really relate to that. It's the times that we don't allow ourselves to relate to that we stay in judgment, and we stay apart from ourselves, and we stay apart from other people. And that is a painful place to be. The other part of this is we hear ourselves saying things like, I am so judgmental. I can't believe I'm just so judgmental. And it's almost like a badge that we wear, or that you hear people say, oh gosh, I'm just terrible. I'm just such a judgmental person. And even that, of talking about it like that, of owning it as an identity like that, just kind of carries that on. It's kind of like, I'll always be this way, and I'm just such a judgmental or whatever person. And I kind of want to address that and say, wait a minute, are you the one that is judgmental, or are you the one that is aware of the judgment? So if you can look into that question, and it's kind of like a meditation that it might take some time, or it might take you just a second. But just to look into that, the one who is judgmental, there's an aspect of you called the egoic mind that lives in fear and worry, blame and shame and regret and resentment. And that is the core of the judgment. And there are, like I said, there are some very good aspects of the judgment that keeps us knowing that this is my body, this is the bench, this is the rock. That is all part of the judgment. But the one that kind of runs away with it and takes off with it, we are the one that is aware of that. So as we say it about ourselves, we say, I am so judgmental. What we should be saying is that I feel so much judgment, or my brain is so judgment. I can see it, I can hear it, I can feel it clicking away on judgment about this person, about this life. And when we can pull back and say, hold on a second, do I want to keep on identifying me with that judgment or with that aspect of myself? So you can have it both ways. You can live in a world, in a life that says, yes, there is judgment. And my brain, man, can really judge a lot. But what I don't do is I don't feed it. I don't feed it down the path of that, okay, here comes the judgment. I'm having this idea about this person or about this company or about this entity. That next step of taking it down the path of causing unbalanced emotion, or causing any kind of emotion about it, that you start getting triggered by it, that's really where the work is. So judgment is going to come, but we can pull back and lessen the energy about the emotion around it, because that's the one that starts to take us down and starts to create resistance. And then that resistance starts to actually bring more of that stuff to us. And I was thinking about this the other day, where sometimes I watch these videos on Facebook, and uh, sometimes I find these guys that are very acquainted with the law, and what you can and what you are supposed to do and not supposed to do when you're stopped by a police officer. And of course, all the states are different, but some of these guys are really pushing the boundaries of, what I am I ordered to do, what I'm legally obligated to do, and that kind of thing. And some of these guys are really have the law in their head, and they really know it. And so they'll get stopped, and the guy will rap on the window. The cop will rap on the window, and he'll crack it open so he can hear him. And the cop will say, "Roll down your window," and then the guy says, "No." And the cop says, "Show me your ID." And he says, "I don't have to." And why did you stand in? And he starts, questioning the cop. And sometimes it goes pretty good and sometimes it doesn't go good. But the question I have is that why is this guy with the camera in his car doing this? Why does he keep on attracting cops that rap on his window? You know, that doesn't happen to me. And it must be some sort of he's prepared for it or he puts himself in the situations, but I think it's more of a it's in his fields and he's starting to attract more and more of it. So just like anything, when we have judgment about it, we carry it in our field. You know, cops shouldn't do this, or law enforcement shouldn't be able to do this, and this is the law. And they spend a lot of their time talking to other people about this law, that they actually start attracting more of that in their field. So that's where the judgment and the emotion around it can actually attract more of it to us. The other part of this is this can be a challenging one too, is releasing the judgment of everything and allowing the world to be as it is. And I know that there's also a kind of a side thought going on, but yeah, but how does the world change, Daniel? If we don't have any preference and we don't cause change, how do things change and how do we evolve? Well, I'm not so sure about that. I haven't got the results back on that test. That could it be that no matter what we do, the world just evolves? And when we start wanting to affect change, and we have started to have preference about things, do we start to change the world that we live in, the consciousness that we live in? I can't say that I have the definite answer about that, but I do wonder that if I stopped all judgment about the world and I released the world from my demands, and I said the world is as it is right now, and looking out in the world, the conflict that we have out in society right now and what's going on, it's happening, and it's definitely not happening. And I think about, if I were to be, which I probably was back in the medieval times, I'd probably be saying the same thing. God, I wish there was a different place. I wish we had running water. I wish we had sewage, systems and toilet paper. And I wish we had these things, but we don't. And so I think looking back at that time back then, it's probably good to say, you know what, it is as it is. And I'm kind of a slave right now, but I'm not going to change it too much except to accept and embrace my life as it is, and make the best of what I have in front of me, and not focus on what I wish was different. And I think I had the same thing, the same realization about this life here, that this life is beautiful, this life is wonderful, and there are aspects of society and the world that I wish were different, definitely. But if I spend so much time judging about that and pondering that and wishing it was different, then I tend to stay in that vibration. So what if I just stopped judging and just started saying, yeah, there are some things that could change, but it is inevitable for it to evolve into something else. I've never heard of the world evolving, and then devolving into a much lower state. It's always just continued to evolve. And every time we've had um, situations where we need to be in fear of the year 2000, or this virus or that virus, or this war or that war, we've always evolved past through it. So when I stay out of a judgment about how I think the world, or this person, or this vacation, or this place that I'm staying at, I wish it was different. Yeah, I can um, use my assertiveness to cause change with what I can change, but the things that I can't change, those things I can relax into. Okay, that's the way it is. And it's when I get used to that, it's a very comforting feeling just to relax into that. So altogether, about reducing judgment or stopping judgment, remember that it's all part of your brain. It's all part of what it does naturally. The problem is that we actually give it more energy. We actually give it more juice to keep on judging and keep that whole pattern going. So if we start to pull back on, we start to notice a little judgment about this guy, this guy who's kind of a traveler, he's a wanderer, and he's got all of his stuff with him, and he's sitting on a rock here every day. what kind of judgment do I have about that? And I can't have any judgment about that because I'm looking at that guy and I'm remembering about my 2,000-mile bicycle journey when I was with a trailer, and for a month I was on the road. So who knows what's happening? So all those parts of that we judge about other people and things are just different aspects of ourselves. And it just really behooves us to embrace all that and say, yep, I've probably been that too. And love all of it. I think that's all I got, except for Jonathan. If you want to add something to that, what are your thoughts about that?
I really like what you said about the ego, because I know it's my ego. My true self, my connection to source would never judge anything. And I know. And it's interesting because I'm working with that, letting go judgments and attachments and opinions and expectations. They're all involved with that ego personality piece.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows up in all those different ways, right? Opinions and frustrations and all that.
And especially the things that bug us the most about the other person, or the aspects within ourselves that we really don't want to look at. And that's why they really bug us.
That reflection back to us.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right, though. I really feel that the truth of me, that awareness, conscious awareness, never judges any of it, because how could it? If the awareness has no boundaries, if it has no borders of itself, how can it judge anything? There's no separation with anything. So it just doesn't make any sense even talking about it.
Right. And when we're living in the trueness, we're living in the oneness of all, and then we're connected to all that is.
Yeah.
Really nice talk today.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. I love you. Bless you. And thank you.